So, what is the real story of the global economy as we head into 2026? I mean, on the one hand, things seem pretty steady. But you just scratch the surface and you find this world of intense, fascinating contradictions. Today, we're going to unpack that story, looking at how the entire global economy is performing this incredible balancing act. Okay, let's get right into it.
All right, the first thing you're going to see everywhere is this big headline number, and it comes from the International Monetary Fund. They're projecting global growth to hold steady at 3.3% in 2026. You know, on the surface, that sounds pretty solid, right? Resilient, stable, kind of straightforward.
But is it really that simple? No way. That calm surface is hiding this massive tug-of-war happening just underneath. And honestly, understanding that tension, well, that's the key to understanding what's really going on with the economy today. So here's our game plan. We're going to start with that steadied outlook, and then we'll dive right into the great balancing act that's causing it. We'll zoom in on two completely different stories, U.S. real estate and India's banking sector, before pulling back to see the stress on what we're calling the corporate battlefield. And then we'll wrap it all up with the big takeaway for 2026.
Okay, so let's start there with that top line number. This idea that when you add it all up, the world's economy is, holding its course.
But here's what's so interesting. Look at the language the IMF is using. They're calling this steady performance the result of divergent forces that are just balancing each other out. Think about that for a second. This isn't stability because everything is calm. It's stability because you have these powerful opposing pressures in a dead heat. It's a stalemate.
And that right there, that brings us to the core theme of this whole explainer, this great balancing act. So let's take a look under the hood at the engine driving these contradictions.
On one side, you've got these incredible tailwinds just pushing the economy forward. We're talking about a massive surge in AI and tech investment, government stepping in with support, and financial conditions that are pretty helpful, generally speaking. But pushing back against all of that are some serious headwinds, ongoing trade tensions, all sorts of geopolitical uncertainty, and these really high levels of public debt. These forces are locked in a constant tug-of-war. And this chart is a perfect illustration of how that works in the real world. Take global trade, for instance. Exports in most areas are actually slowing down a bit, but the boom in tech exports, semiconductors, AI hardware, all that stuff, it is so strong that it's basically single-handedly propping up the total export numbers. It makes everything look pretty robust, but it's a perfect example of one sector's amazing strength masking weakness somewhere else.
Okay, so let's bring this down from the 30,000-foot view and see how this balancing act plays out in a specific market. First up, U.S. commercial real estate. And wow, is it a classic mixed bag right now.
I mean, it's just impossible to paint this market with one single brush. You've got office space making a comeback in places like LA and San Francisco, but at the same time, it's really struggling in cities like Denver and Chicago. Apartments are looking healthy because, well, we have a housing shortage, but high interest rates are a huge risk hanging over everything. And then meanwhile, industrial and retail properties, they're actually doing great. It's this perfect picture of strength and weakness living right next to each other. Now, let's flip the script completely for a contrasting story. Because while the US market is a total mixed picture, India's banking sector is showing this remarkable, just clear-cut resilience.
Now, to really get this, there's one key term we need to know: non-performing asset, or NPA. Long story short, it's a bad loan. It's one where the borrower has just stopped making payments. So pretty simple. The lower a bank's NPA ratio is, the healthier it is.
So with that in mind, get this number. The gross NPA ratio for Indian banks was just 2.1% as of late 2025. That is a multi-decade low. It's just such a powerful sign of a banking system that has become incredibly strong and stable, and that provides a really solid foundation for that part of the global economy.
Okay, so we've got this steady overall growth number. We've got these amazing pockets of strength. But there's a but. There's a really troubling trend happening at the corporate level, a kind of hidden fragility that makes the whole picture way more complicated. And here's the crucial point, the real disconnect. Even though the global economy is growing, the number of businesses that are failing is actually rising, and rising sharply. This index shows a huge spike in business failures in 2024, and the projections show that number is going to stay high right into 2026. This is it. The macro numbers look okay, but on the ground, a lot of companies are really just struggling to survive.
And if you need any more proof, just listen to this. A double-digit increase in business failures in half of all countries surveyed. And the crucial part? They're warning that the rise is not over. This just reveals the deep stress that those top-line growth numbers are hiding so well.
So, where does that leave us? What are we supposed to make of all these competing stories and conflicting signals as we look at the year ahead?
Well, it really boils down to understanding three core tensions. First, you've got that steady top-line growth clashing with real rising pain for individual businesses. Second, you have a massive tech and AI boom that's fighting against the drag of trade tensions. And third, you see these pockets of incredible strength, like India's banks, existing right next to these complex, messy pictures, like U.S. real estate. The story of 2026 isn't one single trend. It's the story of the tense, fragile balance between all these powerful forces.
And that leaves us with one final critical question. In an economy that's defined not by calm, but by all these intense contradictions and this fragile balance, what does true stability even mean anymore? It really makes you think.